Have you ever been so exhausted that you just wanted to disappear from all the noise inside your own head? Until suddenly a voice, not too warm, not too perfect, pulls you back up as if it understands the fear you've never said out loud? In this video, I'll tell you about the voice that anchored me through a storm in Denmark. And maybe by the end, you'll realize which voice is keeping your own soul from sinking. When the storm breaks, the storm begins. Have you ever been so exhausted that you just wanted to disappear from all the noise inside your own head? Until suddenly a voice, not too warm, not too perfect, pulls you back up as if it understands the fear you've never said out loud? In this video, I'll tell you about the voice that anchored me through a storm in Denmark. And maybe by the end, you'll realize which voice is keeping your own soul from sinking. Imagine this. You're standing in a quiet Danish street where the air feels so cold it could crack your thoughts in half. The wind hits your coat like tiny fists and your mind, already a mess, decides this is the perfect moment to collapse. It's funny how storms never wait for the right time. They just break wherever you are, even if it's in a country you barely understand. And in that moment, your own breathing sounds louder than the world around you, like your chest is trying to warn you that something inside is unraveling. People think breaking down is dramatic. But the truth? It's small, quiet. It hides behind your ribs and whispers, "Not today." Your brain doesn't explode. It slowly folds like paper getting softer in the rain. Psychologists call this cognitive overload, when the brain rejects too many emotions at once, like a computer overheating from too many tabs you forgot to close. The science sounds neat, but living it feels like sinking in slow motion. I remember standing there, feeling the pressure build behind my eyes. The worst part wasn't the fear itself. It was the silence. Denmark has this strange kind of quiet, beautiful when you're fine, terrifying when you're not. The kind that makes every thought echo 10 times louder. And my thoughts weren't kind that day. They ran wild, sharp, chaotic, like little storms fighting each other. There's a moment, right before panic fully takes over, when the world bends. Sounds distort. Your legs feel like borrowed furniture. Your heart tries to sprint while your body refuses to move. Neuroscientists say your amygdala hijacks your system. Basically, your survival mode jumps out of a bush and screams, "Surprise!" And suddenly you're not a human anymore. You're just a pulse wearing clothes that I wish I could say I handled it gracefully. But the truth? I felt like a small, lost thing swallowed by a country too big, too cold, too foreign for the storm I carried inside. And yet, right at the edge of that collapse, right when everything in me was shaking, a voice would soon appear. A voice that didn't sound heroic, or magical, or even special, just steady, just calm, just enough. But that part of the story comes next. The first time I heard him, a voice in the quiet. You know that strange moment when the world is falling apart inside your head, yet somehow the smallest, simplest sound becomes the only thing that feels real? That's exactly how it happened the first time I heard his voice. Not during a dramatic rescue, not in a movie scene moment, just in an ordinary corner of Denmark where everything felt painfully unordinary to me. I was sitting on a cold metal bench near a bus stop in Aarhus, pretending to scroll my phone so no one would notice my hands shaking. The Danish winter light was doing that thing it always does, making midday look like late afternoon, as if the sun itself was too tired to show up. And honestly, I got it. I was tired too. That's when I heard him. Not loud, Not commanding. Just there. A slow, steady rhythm that didn't try to fix anything, didn't rush, didn't push. It slipped into the air the way warm tea slips into a cold cup, filling the space without forcing it. If you asked me to describe the words he said that day, I couldn't. But the way he said them, I remember every second of it. See, your brain is a strange creature. Neuroscientists say we respond to vocal tone faster than we understand words. Something about the vagus nerve, the body's internal comm switch. When a voice hits the right frequency, your system softens just a little, like a locked door clicking open from the inside. And that's exactly what happened. His voice didn't solve the storm inside me. It just gave it a place to rest. I remember looking up, startled, half expecting an angel or a therapist or maybe a Danish wizard with a glowing staff. Instead, it was just a man, scarf too long, gloves mismatched, looking like someone who had also lived through a few storms of his own. That made the moment even more surreal. How could a stranger's voice feel like something familiar? Maybe that's how anchors work. They don't shout. They don't shine. They just hold. His voice didn't tell me I was okay. It didn't feed me cliches or motivational quotes you'd find stitched on a pillow. It simply existed with a kind of unbothered steadiness that made my own chaos feel less personal, less catastrophic, less loud. And for the first time that day, my breathing slowed enough for me to hear something other than fear. Some people say they remember faces. Some remember places. Me? I remember voices, especially the ones that arrive right when the world tilts. And his voice was exactly that. The sound that walked quietly into my storm without asking permission. A voice that didn't rush. Time slowed when he spoke. There's something almost suspicious about a voice that refuses to hurry. Especially when your entire mind is sprinting like it's being chased by invisible wolves. That was the strange contrast the first time I truly listened to him. His voice moved at a completely different speed than my panic. While my thoughts crashed into each other like drunk pigeons, his words wandered out calmly, one by one, as if time belonged to him and not to the chaos inside me. Picture this. Your brain is a washing machine set to maximum spin. And suddenly someone walks by and presses pause with nothing but the way they speak. No big gesture. No philosophy. Just rhythm. Scientists call this prosody, the melody of speech, the thing that tells your nervous system whether it should panic, run, or finally sit down and drink some water. His prosody. It was like a warm blanket tossed over a shaking dog. Unfairly gentle. Unreasonably soothing. I didn't even notice what he was talking about. Something about the bus schedule? The weather? A funny story about losing his keys? It didn't matter. What mattered was the way each word felt spaced out, like he was leaving room for me to breathe between them. And trust me, I needed those spaces. My lungs were basically doing a protest march. He didn't push his voice higher to sound cheerful. He didn't drop it lower to sound wise. He just stayed steady, the kind of steady that makes you realize how long you've been trying to keep yourself together with tape and stubbornness. There's a Danish term, rolig, which means calm, quiet, at ease. His voice was rolig even when the world outside wasn't. At one point he laughed. Not loudly, not awkwardly. Just this soft, accidental chuckle that felt like someone opening a window in a stuffy room. I swear my mind unclenched by at least 20%. It's ridiculous how a single sound can do that, but biology doesn't care about pride. When your system hears a safe voice, it stops acting like everything is on fire. Basically, the nervous system is dramatic for no reason. And the strangest thing? It wasn't the content of his speech that reached me. It was the space around it. The pauses. The unhurried breaths. The silence that didn't feel empty. It was the kind of voice that lets you exist without demanding a performance from you. I didn't know it yet. But this was the beginning of something I'd rely on more than I wanted to admit. A voice that didn't rush because it didn't need to. A voice that made my storm feel optional. Why his voice felt safe. The science of feeling held. There's a funny thing about safety. Your body usually knows it before your mind does. You can sit in a locked room, surrounded by soft blankets and IKEA candles, and still feel like a disaster waiting to happen. But then someone speaks, just a simple "Are you okay?" And suddenly your shoulders drop like they've been carrying furniture for 8 years straight. That's what his voice did to me. It didn't solve anything. It simply convinced my nervous system to stop acting like Denmark was a battlefield. Psychologists love to talk about co-regulation, the idea that one person's calm can literally adjust another person's internal chaos. Sounds poetic, right? But it's real. Your vagus nerve, which is basically the emotional Wi-Fi of your body, responds to certain tones the way a tired child responds to being wrapped in a warm jacket. Instantly softer, instantly smaller. His voice had that effect. Not because it was deep, not because it was beautiful, but because it was consistent, predictable, unshaken. And that's exactly what I didn't have inside my own head. When he spoke, there was this subtle confidence in the way he shaped his words. Not confidence like bragging, but confidence like someone who had survived their own storms and no longer needed to shout over them. It felt strangely grounding. Like standing next to someone whose feet were firmly planted when mine were slipping all over the place. I think the safety came from the contrast. My thoughts were spinning, my chest was tight, and my heartbeat felt like it was trying to win a marathon without my permission. But his voice, slow, even, unbothered. It didn't rise to meet my panic. It invited my panic to come down to meet it. Some people give comfort with hugs, others with solutions. He did it with tone, as if every syllable carried a quiet message. You're not alone in this. Breathe. You can land here. And honestly, I needed a place to land more than anything. Maybe safety isn't always a place. Maybe sometimes it's just a sound. A human sound that tells your storm it's allowed to calm down. The night my mind collapsed, a storm I didn't see coming. There's a moment in every breakdown when you swear the universe has picked the worst possible time to throw you off a cliff. Mine happened on a Tuesday night, which already felt rude. Nothing bad is supposed to happen on a Tuesday. It's the weekday equivalent of lukewarm tea. Boring, predictable, harmless. But apparently my brain didn't get the memo. I was walking back to my apartment in Denmark. The kind of night where the cold doesn't just touch you. It taps your bones and says, "Hi, I live here now." The streets were too quiet, the sky too dark, and my thoughts too loud. You know the kind of loud I mean, the loud that doesn't shout, but presses on your chest like an anchor made of anxiety. Halfway home, something inside me simply snapped. No warning. No drama. Just a sudden sinking feeling like my mind had tripped on a loose tile and didn't bother getting back up. My breath shortened. My vision tightened. The streetlights blurred like someone smeared Vaseline across my eyes. Neuroscientists call this a sympathetic spike, but honestly it felt more like my brain screaming, "We're doomed!" For absolutely no reason. I remember leaning against a wall trying to look casual, as if casually dying inside was a normal Danish winter activity. My hands were trembling so badly, I probably could have blended a smoothie with them. And then in the middle of that silent, icy street, my phone buzzed. It was him. I didn't even read the message. I just called. The moment he answered, I didn't say a word. I couldn't. But he must have heard the storm in my breathing, because his first sentence was soft, steady, and terrifyingly calm. "I'm here. Just listen." And that was it. No questions. No panic. Just that voice, slow enough to pull me out of the spiral, gentle enough to make my heartbeat stop sprinting, firm enough to remind me I wasn't going to shatter right there on the sidewalk. That it felt like someone reached into the dark and grabbed my hand without looking. People think rescue feels dramatic, like fireworks and epiphanies, but sometimes it sounds like a single human voice cutting through the noise your own mind creates. A voice that becomes your anchor just when you think you're about to drown. That night I didn't collapse. I was pulled back. The calm hidden in his words, more than just words. It's strange how a few simple words can feel heavier than a novel when they come at the right moment. I still remember sitting in my tiny apartment, the Danish winter pressing against the windows like it wanted inside, and thinking I might actually dissolve into the floor. My mind was a tangle of panic, regret, and exhaustion, the kind that makes your thoughts feel like angry bees trapped under glass. Then I heard him. Not yelling, not cheering, not giving advice, just talking. Slow, deliberate, even pauses between sentences that somehow made space for me to breathe. The words themselves didn't carry magic. They weren't brilliant or poetic. But the calm woven between them? That's what hit me like a lifeboat. Science explains it in boring terms: the vagus nerve, heart rate variability, emotional contagion. But living it is nothing like reading it. Living it feels like your nervous system, which has been doing somersaults in a storm, suddenly decides, okay, maybe we can stop flailing for a bit. And that's exactly what happened. Each pause, each gentle syllable, slowed the chaotic rhythm inside me. My lungs relaxed. My shoulders softened. My mind finally could rest long enough to process, to exist without screaming. There's a subtle power in voices that don't demand attention. He didn't try to fix me or explain why I was panicking. He didn't push for solutions. He just existed through the phone, steady and unshaken. And in that steadiness, my own storm started to lose its edge. It was almost absurd how much impact a human voice could have. Nothing flashy, nothing dramatic, just consistency. I realized that night that it wasn't about what was said. It was about the invisible rhythm connecting two people. Him anchoring me, me clinging to that anchor. It's the kind of connection science can describe but not fully capture. You feel it. Your body responds before your mind even has a chance to argue. And the strange, beautiful thing? That anchor didn't just calm me in that moment. It taught me how to find stillness elsewhere. In music, in footsteps on snow, in my own slow, deliberate breathing. His voice became a blueprint for quiet resilience, a reminder that calm can be contagious. By the end of that night, I wasn't fixed, but I was stable enough to realize that storms, no matter how fierce, can meet a steady sound and pause. Sometimes that's all it takes to survive. The anchor I didn't expect, holding on without knowing. It's funny how life sneaks up with lessons you never asked for. I never expected a voice, a simple human voice, to become something I relied on without even realizing it. That was the strange part. By the time I understood what was happening, the anchor had already taken hold, quietly steadying me in ways I hadn't asked for and couldn't articulate. Weeks had passed since that first call. I was walking through a familiar Copenhagen neighborhood, snow crunching under my boots, feeling the usual hum of anxiety tickling my chest. But something had changed. The storm inside me still existed, but I carried a lifeline I hadn't noticed before. A sound that reminded me I could survive it. That lifeline wasn't loud. It didn't shout over the chaos. It simply existed, consistent, calm, present. And my body knew exactly what to do when it heard it. The more I thought about it, the more I realized why it worked. Psychologists talk about internalized regulation. The idea that, over time, external cues can become internal anchors. That voice, slow and steady, wasn't just a rescue anymore. It had become a template. Hearing it taught me how to speak gently to myself, how to pause when my thoughts threatened to run away, how to exist in a storm without being consumed. It was like learning to row while the waves crashed, except someone had shown me the rhythm first. What surprised me most wasn't the science, though. It was the emotional truth. That a stranger or someone barely familiar could hold a space for me that I hadn't been able to hold for myself. It wasn't about authority. It wasn't about charm. It was about presence. Pure, simple, unwavering presence. My storm didn't need fixing. It just needed a witness, someone whose calm became my scaffold. And so I carried it with me, in the quiet hum of my apartment, in the soft echo of footsteps on cobblestones, in the rhythm of my own breath. It wasn't dramatic. There were no fireworks. Just a voice, patient, consistent, unexpectedly anchoring. And that tiny anchor transformed the way I navigated fear, uncertainty, and the strange loneliness that comes with being far from home. By the time I realized it, I didn't need him to speak to feel steady anymore. I had learned the rhythm. I had internalized the calm. But the memory of that voice, the way it anchored me when I needed it most, stayed with me like a secret lifeline. Your storm, your anchor, finding your calm. By the time I finally understood what had happened, it was almost laughable how simple it was. Storms don't always need to be fought. Sometimes they just need a point to lean against. That voice, calm, steady, unassuming, became that point for me. Not a solution, not a pep talk, not even a plan. Just an anchor. And in realizing that, I finally began to see my own storm differently. It's strange how human beings work. We spend so much energy trying to silence chaos, to push it away, to outrun it. But sometimes the most profound help comes from something almost invisible. A voice that tells your nervous system, you're okay. Breathe. You're not alone. Scientists call this co-regulation, psychologists call it attachment, but I call it survival. Because without that anchor, I might have let the storm sweep me completely away. And here's the remarkable truth. The voice that anchors you doesn't have to belong to someone else. It can. But it can also be a voice you cultivate inside yourself. The way you speak to yourself in moments of fear. The pause you allow when your mind spins. The steady rhythm you create when everything feels chaotic. That's the secret every human being can access. You don't have to wait for a hero. You just have to notice the anchor that already exists, whether inside you or in someone who quietly holds space for you. I like to think of that voice as a lighthouse. When the waves crash, when the wind howls, when everything inside and outside threatens to pull you under, it doesn't stop the storm. It doesn't even reduce the waves. But it shines steadily, showing you the place where you can stand without being swept away. And sometimes just knowing that light exists, even if you're not looking directly at it, is enough to keep moving. So I leave you with this. Who or what is your anchor? Whose calm can guide you through your storms? And more importantly, how can you become that calm for yourself when the world gets too loud? That is the question I hope you carry long after this video ends. Because finding your anchor is the first step toward weathering any storm, big or small.